Money Vikings, welcome back. I've got an interesting one for you today. I want to introduce you to this guy, this picture over here, which is not me in 10 years, but I'm kind of looking at it and it kind of freaks me out a little bit. I guess it is maybe me in 10 years. This guy's name is Scott Galloway, and he is an entrepreneur. He's an investor. He's a professor, and he just has a lot of really interesting things to say, especially for young people just starting out. And so I wanted to go through kind of the top 5 takeaways. Definitely check him out. Check out he's all over YouTube. He's all over social media. He has a book called The Algebra of Wealth. And I want to kind of go through kind of the top 6 takeaways in kind of a more brief format and just introduce you guys to him. So anyway, let me go through it here. This is, I don't know what happened to my, what the heck is going on here? Some kind of weird. Okay, so here he is. This is the guy, The Algebra of Wealth, Professor Galloway's Fiscal Formula. I'm going to go through this, but his main sort of argument, I think he's either a young boomer. I think he's one of the youngest boomers, or he's like one of the oldest Gen X, but I think he's like one of the youngest boomers. And his whole sort of thesis is that our system has stacked the cards against younger generations in terms of building wealth. He talks about how all of the benefits of wealth building and accumulating wealth over the last several decades have gone to people that are old. And he talks about, who owns houses and stocks. Older people, generally speaking. Who gets really good Social Security benefits? Older people. Who gets free health care? Older people. And I'm not against those programs. This is not a political program, so I'm not saying anything bad about that. But what he's trying to say, though, is that we have to keep in mind that in addition to all those benefits and all that money that has flown to older people, at the same time, younger people have been saddled with huge amounts of student loan debt. So student loans and the cost of getting an education have skyrocketed. And I've shown before on truewealth.moneyvikings.com on our blog, I've shown in various videos that when I've been focusing on inflation, one of the ironic things about inflation, which has come down, by the way, and has slowed down a lot, is that it didn't start the last couple of years in terms of, it's just that we saw things that we hadn't seen before go up, like groceries and fast food and eating out and that kind of stuff. What's really been inflating for a long time is the cost of an education. And I can prove it to you. You can look at charts online. If you look at inflation of various things over the decades, education has this curve of like shooting up in terms of cost. Housing has a huge curve of shooting up in cost because we've not built enough housing. We didn't think ahead. We didn't think at all about supply and demand. We just did a lot of not in my backyard, don't develop. These are the sort of the areas where there's development and there's not going to be any more. There's places that are catching up and they're working hard to do it, and that's going to be a good thing for millennials and Gen Z and younger in the out years. So anyway, I think you get the gist of it. He says all of these financial benefits have gone and flown to older folks over the age of 60. And all of those younger have dealt with a lot of headwinds, you could say. The winds were not at their backs for quite a long time. I actually come from a unique perspective because I'm Gen X and I'm kind of more on the middle to younger side of Gen X. And my point being this, I kind of straddle the worlds. I have felt that in a lot of ways, I feel like Indiana Jones, where I've gotten right under the like closing drawbridge, as benefits were stripped away at companies, as housing got too expensive, as school got too expensive. I had some school loans, but they were modest in hindsight. They were very modest. They weren't that outrageous of school loans. So anyway, the point being, I've kind of been in this like middle world my whole life where it's like I've been in between worlds. I've had a little bit of the benefits of the older folks, but a little bit of the struggles of the younger generation. So I can actually see both sides of this whole equation quite clearly. So Scott Galloway, I think he does a really great job of articulating this. And what he then does, I think he does a good job of providing some optimism and some hope. Another reason I would watch him, he's radically transparent about his flaws and his failures throughout his, the guy's totally rich now. From what I can tell, he's got like $100 million bucks. So he's made a lot of money. But my understanding is he also lost a lot of money. I think in the dot-com bust, he lost a lot of money. And I think he was basically broke at, maybe like 40 years old, which is that's a tough age to start over again. It really is. But he did it, and he did great. He's done very well for himself in terms of investing and building companies and selling them and all that. So obviously a talented, intelligent guy. He's really thinking about things on a macro level. I always enjoy checking him out. So I would make him and some of his ideas part of your wealth journey. And let me talk a little bit about, so first of all, The Algebra of Wealth is the book that he wrote. And I want to go through a couple things here. He talks about Stoicism, the Greek philosophy of Stoicism. And that's pretty cool. He says, life isn't about what happens. It's about how you respond to what happens. He talks a lot about how, even when you are successful, he says, be careful not to give yourself too much credit. He says, sometimes it's an accident and you weren't totally responsible for all of your success. Maybe some of it, but you're not responsible for all of it. He does acknowledge that there's an element of luck and timing in the world that no one can control, no one individual. So we can, at Money Vikings, we're trying to do everything we can that's within our power and our control. And I love a famous Stoic sort of saying, and I can't remember who said it, but anyway, the point of Stoicism in my mind is you do the best you can with what you have, with where you're at. Okay, so you do the best you can in the moment with what you are, with where you're at. But Stoicism is much more dynamic than that. But do your own research on that. It is interesting. I've done some videos on it. You can check those out on our YouTube page. So he talks about focus, choosing where we devote our time and effort during the course of an entire career will largely determine our future financial success. So, he talks about debunking the standard credo of following your passion. He says probably that's the worst advice. Instead of devoting ourselves to pursuing passions with minuscule chances of success, like being a professional athlete, we should focus on our talents. Okay. So time as well, and we will go from there. So we will continue this video in the future, and let me go into his top 6 sort of things. He talks about take calculated risk. He talks about failing fast. If you're going to fail, fail fast. He talks about always investing the best you can. He talks about betting on the USA, time and compounding, and etc. So I hope that helps, guys. Check them out.